You know, back when I was 19 years old, I was given the best piece of advice that I've ever received. I was told, Daryl, when you stop fighting, the fighting stops. Let's talk about that. Hello and welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast. My name is Daryl Dittmer. Today I'm joined by a wonderful friend of mine, Kali Banks. Kali is an American educator and philosopher dedicated to the pursuit of self-help through spiritual self-inquiry. With degrees in human services and education, Kali brings over 2 decades of experience as a public school educator, specializing in the transformative power of mindful communication and heart-centered living. Kali also wrote one of my favorite books, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but Awareness is Evolution. And there aren't that many books that I highlight, but I highlighted the heck out of his book, and absolutely loved it. Kali is also a spiritual teacher and a spiritual guide, and I know I've learned a lot from Kali, but you know, more than willing to help anyone in need of direction. Welcome, Kali. Great to see you again, man.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daryl. I've learned a great deal from you too, my friend. I enjoy our conversations always.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, as do I. You know, we talk and, you know, we connect, and it's the coolest thing because it's like, you know, it's like the wormhole, right? It folds and like no time has gone by, right?
Yes.
Like in terms of when we spoke before and getting to, you know, get back together again and speak. So I cherish it, and I love the time that we get to spend.
Likewise.
Thank you. So you know, you have a wonderful story that includes so many things, and you know, you've changed your life, and that's what this whole ride is about. It's about, you know, what can we do to adjust? What can we do to get better? What can we do to connect, right? And so, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love it if you'd share your story and the road you've been on, or the roads you've been on, and you know, what brings you to the place you are now.
Well, I imagine it's a version of everyone else's story, you know, heartache, anguish, suffering, foolish choices, foolish mistakes, foolish thinking, foolish habits, recklessness, just lots of foolishness, you know, and this is kind of life. Well, it was definitely my life. And I got tired. I got tired of not having any answers. I got tired of making the same types of mistakes. I got tired of heading down the wrong paths and just kind of backbiting myself. I felt, you know, I felt every way you can feel angry, confused. You know, I've overeaten, I overindulged in alcohol. Now I was alcoholic. I was a drug addict. I was a sex addict. I did whatever that could give me a temporary fix or pause from my own mind. And that's what I discovered, is that the torture and the discomfort and the anguish that we go through buying into the scenarios that our mind generates is only that. It's only generated in the mind, and we buy into it, and we don't have to buy into it. Right. So that's what I discovered. I discovered that peace and the answers and the love and the solitude that I was seeking, you know, was mine to give myself the whole time. I gave myself the discomfort. You know, I gave myself the turmoil. It was all by buying into the mental scenarios that my mind created. And that's what we do. Our minds generate all of these ideas and notions and scenarios and we buy into it. The mind fuels emotions and the emotions fuel the thoughts, and it goes circular and into like a perpetual loop of sorrow and discomfort, suffering, and we can stop it just by realizing and observing that this is happening and disassociating ourselves with that process. And so that's what I learned to do. And it only happened when I got so fed up or so humbled by life's circumstances that I surrendered. I stopped trying to come up with solutions and answers. And when I just gave up and really surrendered to life, then I could hear the instructions of life. I couldn't hear what life was telling me over my own thoughts. What should be, what shouldn't have been, what should I do if only this would have happened. I had all of this clutter, but when I learned to shut up, right, and when I learned to recognize that a lot of the chatter in my mind and the thoughts weren't mine, most of it isn't mine. So the mind just and the brain just thinks on its own. It just happens, and these thoughts arise, and that's what the brain does. It's what it's supposed to do. And we get into trouble when we follow those thoughts and when we associate what we are with thinking and with the thoughts that the mind generates. And we're like, oh, I'm a terrible person, or I'm a this, I'm a that, or I'm not a this and I'm not a that, right? And because we're following these thoughts. And so it was very empowering to realize that I am not the thoughts, that the thoughts just simply arise and they pass by. And by becoming the witness, the observer of thinking, it was a very empowering thing because I no longer am crippled by what the mind is generating, if that makes any sense.
Complete.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if and everyone can do this, again, the heart beats on its own and our body functions on its own, and thinking is no different. We just associate with thinking because it's the movie, it's the audio, it's the video, and it records everything that you've watched through your senses over your life. And so it feels intimate. It's tricky, right? You associate yourself with it. Oh, I thought that because my mind thought that. No, your mind just does that on its own. But we don't do that with heart beating. We don't say, "Oh, I'm beating my heart," or "I'm breathing. I'm using my lungs right now," or "I'm using my kidney and my liver," because they're not those organs that operate on their own. They're not associated with imagery and feelings and things like that. So thinking feels much different, and we associate with the thoughts that are arising, but they just happen on their own. And so to realize that thinking is just something that occurs, that just passes by, like clouds come into the sky, like birds fly into the sky, like traffic passes by your window. If you can just tune them out, be aware that they're there, but they have no power at all until you give them attention. So if you realize that it takes you and your attention to give any thought, any emotion power, then you can remove that power from it or you can add that power to it. And in that realization, you can choose to only give thoughts and emotions that serve you in the highest way attention. Like if it doesn't, and most don't give it any attention. Just recognize it, maybe smirk at it, or and just allow it to pass by. And it's extremely liberating to become aware of the thought process.
It's freedom, right? I mean,
You
it's
know,
absolutely freedom, and I think we can get hung up in thinking that freedom is controlling. Freedom is, grabbing stuff and,
mm,
making it go and making it work
yes,
and, all that sort of stuff. And freedom is actually the opposite of
it's
that.
the
And
opposite. Yes,
you
that's a
mentioned it.
misconception of life.
It's surrender, right? It's
Allowance, acceptance. Yes,
right.
surrender.
Allowing life as
Yes,
opposed to grabbing life by the
trying to.
horns and saying, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to
Yeah,
ride this pony until it
yeah.
knocks me off, which it
No,
always knocks you off.
it's going to knock you off.
Yeah.
It's going to knock you off. Just let it happen. We let these things happen, and we let the thoughts arise, and we let them pass. And it's not difficult to do. Everyone could do it. Everyone should do it. Just witness your thoughts and allow them to pass. Allow them to arise in the past, and the better you get at it, they pass much quicker. Um, Peace and happiness and joy are already present. We live our lives like I did, looking for those things, looking to be happy and looking for it in substance and possessions, and people, right? Looking for it everywhere, but we all have these things already. Our natural state is happy. Our natural state is joyful. Our natural state is peaceful. We just cover it up with thoughts and ideas and notions and emotions and, all these things. We cover it when we let it sit and let all that sediment drift to the bottom, let all that noise and confusion sit down, it begins to clear. And then what's there is our natural state of happiness, joyfulness, and peacefulness, right? And so we just need to be still and get out of the way, allow, stop
Yeah.
fighting.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
because our culture is bootstraps by the horns, like you said. Where you gotta work, you have to, you have to, you have to, you know. Um, we have to do these things, and we have to make things this certain way. If you want this, then you have to do these things. And so you're setting yourself up because it's never going to pan out the way you think it is. When you try to plan in your mind, which I'm not saying don't plan, but the outcome is never going to match your mental projection. And so you're going to be disappointed. And then you're going to criticize yourself and say, well, only if, and I should have, and I didn't. And then you get into that loop of suffering, and torturing yourself about what should have been. In reality, what is supposed to be. You don't lose if you learn, right? And so if you are in the moment and appreciative to the moment and aware and present in the moment, it will give you everything you're supposed to have.
And it takes what it takes to get to the point where we can allow and
Oh
we
yeah.
can, just let this life happen. And I've always, I shouldn't say always been, but for a long time I was, like, oh, I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to do that and I got to get this done. I got to plan this and do this. And what I found out was when I move with intention and I live my life with intention and I don't necessarily, I'm a terrible planner. Murph's the planner.
Of course.
I'm a terrible planner. I don't plan. I kind of allow things to show up and they, they happen the way they happen. And that's that.
Right.
But what I've found is um, many times, and my life, I believe, is an example of this, and I believe your life is an example of this, is it's better than I ever thought it could be.
Oh
And it
yes,
right? I mean, but it
it's
doesn't have,
perfect.
yeah.
It could be no better than it is,
But it,
and when
yeah.
we realize that, that is the gift, that is the gift of the presence. When we realize that everything is exactly how it should be, and it could be no better than it is right now. This conversation here with you, listening to you, talking with you here right now. There's no concerns, there's no troubles, there's no worries, there's nothing but a beautiful interaction. And that's how each moment is. Even if that moment is instructing you in in a stern way, you know.
Little butt
It,
whooping. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but there's a beauty in that, right? When we sit with it, it'll tell us what it is that it's intending to let us know if we're there with it. And it could be no better than that. The sweet is only known through understanding what the bitter is. The calm is only known because of we understand what the turmoil is, right? And so the turmoil is beautiful because it allows us to see peace. Each thing, each function is the other function. So everything that happens is just as beautiful as anything else. We just have to appreciate it what it is and allow. So when we allow the situation to be what it is, we can see the beauty in it. And there's beauty in every situation. There's nothing but that.
And it's true. I look back at my life, and people have said to me, if there was one thing you could change, or what do you regret, or, and I'm like, nothing. There's
Nothing.
nothing I would change. There's
Yeah.
nothing I regret. Now, am I proud of some of the things? No, I'm not, but I
No.
don't regret them because
Right.
they brought me here. Right.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Even with loved ones, like I have dear ones, and I know that they've been through terrible traumatic situations. And I think like, wow, if what would I do? Or if I could change that, would I change that? Would I save them from that situation that they had to endure? Um, no. Everything must be. I love and appreciate who you are now. And as awful as that story is, or that situation may have been, in terms of hearing it, right? I wouldn't change anything about anyone, especially my loved ones, and so that means allowing even something that I kind of wish didn't happen, but with it said, why should I wish that it didn't happen? It did happen. And so I don't want to get caught up into wishing that something didn't happen. It happened. So we embrace that. Don't waste time wishing that something didn't happen. It did, you accept it. And the outcome is beautiful, right? The
Right.
outcome is what it is. And I appreciate the circumstances now. I appreciate the people I know now, regardless of the traumas that they may have endured, right? That molded you into a special person, and so I'm grateful for everything that you've gone through. And you understand what I'm saying? And so it's a waste of time to get caught up into, oh man, I wish that never happened. I wish that, and us who go through different traumas, we have to learn that. We have to learn to embrace them, accept them, and to be here. It's not about even really moving forward. It's about being here, because here, the trauma isn't here. The trauma is in your imagination. You have to remember. You have to imagine it happening and how it happened again, right? In order to relive it. But here and right now, that doesn't exist. It's not. It's a figment of your imagination, and that's tough to tell someone. It's tough to maybe even accept ourselves. Who've gone through different things. But in reality, if you just observe the truth, it's not here. You really have to conjure it up in your mind. You have to think about it. You have to imagine it. We call it remember, but it's imagining. Whether it's in what we call the past, or whether it's something we're imagining what is gonna happen or could happen. That's us imagining things. And life isn't in our imagination. Life is here in the moment. Right. And
Right.
so instead of torturing ourselves in our imaginations, if we just enjoy here where the peace is, and we don't have to bring anything here or imagine what's going to be forward or anything like that, if we just appreciate what we have here, and it's so much, all of existence is right here in the moment. And so why would you want to leave this and go somewhere that you don't want to be? Well, we're gluttons for punishment. And I was, and moments still, I still do that. I just notice it. And when I notice it, I smile and I say, here I was playing around. I was playing the game, and I snap myself out of it. Right. And that's what it's about. It's not about, okay, I want to change my life and how I think forever. Oh man, that's so tough. Just that idea is kind of overwhelming. No, you just do it now. Just pay attention and be aware now. And then when you notice that you were going into your own imagination and running off, and your face was squinching up, but you're getting, your heart is beating fast, and you're reliving something that's not real here right now, then you catch yourself and you stop. You stop now, right?
The
And
only
you
thing
return.
that gets life is what we assign life to, right? In terms
Yeah.
of what can affect us, what can throw us off our center, all that sort of thing. This reminded me of something I probably haven't thought of in 30 years, but they used to say around the 12-step tables when I was getting sober and getting my head out of my derriere, they said, Daryl, your life is none of your business. I'm like, oh, all right. All right. I guess I can do the best I can with that one, and I think it's very true, right? We get the moment. That's what we get. We get the moment.
That's
And
hilarious. That's brilliant. That is
everything
brilliant.
else is contrived. Right?
Right. Leave it alone. Get out of
Right.
the way. Get out of the way. You don't know how to life. Life does. Let it be. Let it be. Yeah, it's none of your business.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's interesting because, you hear these things and then 30 years later you think of them, but there's been something back here that's been, pondering that for a
Yes.
long time, right? And
Yeah.
and that's the life part. I can leave that alone. It's going to do its work, and
Yes.
I can be here and I can be now, but it's also, it takes practice, right? It takes committing to it. It takes, for me and you, I think, being sick and tired of being sick and tired. So
Mhm.
that's what we have to experience before we put in the effort, right?
Yes.
Or put in
Yes.
the non-effort, whatever
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Learning to unlearn and learning to stop and be still. Right. Yes. Being deliberate, being intentional, and but intentional, but being deliberate and intentional about getting out of the way, right? Not in grinding and making things happen and controlling, because control only happens when you stop trying to control. Otherwise, you're just fooling yourself You're getting into the loop of frustration because you're going to learn, well, hopefully quick, you're going to learn that you're not controlling anything,
Right.
So when you allow, you can relax.
Right. Life was going to life. Life is going to happen. That's one of my favorite things that you say is life is going to life. I thought of something, and this kind of popped into my consciousness as you were talking, and I'm not a religious guy, but I love biblical stuff because there's
Yeah.
so much to
Gems,
be gleaned.
wealth
But
in there.
when I thought about living in the past, I thought about the story of Lot's wife, who don't look back at Sodom and Gomorrah as you're leaving that place. Don't look back, or you'll turn into a pillar of salt. And she
Hmm.
looked back, and she turned into a pillar of salt. And
Hmm.
that's living in the past, and that's
Yes.
what can happen, right?
That's a brilliant allegory, man. And yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's the truth. Don't look back. Don't look
Right.
back, or it will salt you here. It's going to sour you here. You're going to take that with you, right? There's no reason to take the salt with you. It's sweet right here. It's why bring salt? And she turned to a whole bag of salt, right?
It's dessert time. Yeah. She
Yeah.
she yeah, exactly. She turned into a pillar of salt,
Yeah.
which I think about that when I think about,
Mhm.
because I can live in the past.
Mhm.
I can spend all of my mind time
Yes.
there,
Yes.
and it's destructive, and that's
Yes.
all that it is. It's destructive.
Yes. It's destructive, and it's a thief. It robs
Mhm.
you of reality, or our perceptual opportunity of reality. Or our what we call reality. It steals that from you when you are in the past or in the future. Thinking about, man, when this deal goes through, I'm gonna buy this, I'm gonna steal this, I'm gonna tell them to kiss it, and I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna, that's robbing you, and you're trading um the fictitious for the truth, and you're leaving the most precious, you're leaving peace, you're leaving happiness, you're leaving joy, right? You're leaving the present moment. You're leaving your gift, right? You're
Right.
leaving your opportunities. You're leaving your life because your life is here now, not in the mental movie. Yeah. So,
Right. Right. I know that I have a little more uh, rough take on, my life was characterized by a little roughness. So I look at it like, and I would say the road you're on is your own asphalt, right? And
mhm.
and I agree with that 100%, but it's a little lighter than that in the final analysis. I mean, it I can be heavy, but it doesn't have to be heavy. Life can be light, and life can be, like you said, joyful. And I remember um, feeling like, what is this joy that people talk about? What is this serenity that people talk about? I'd meet people, and they would be living this way, and I'd be like, how does that
How
how
do you
does
do
that
that?
happen? How do
How
you
do you do
get
that?
there?
Right.
Or can you get there? Are you getting anywhere, or is it just reeling it back and being present now, which I think is really what it boils down to. But it's for me, it was an uncovering. It was a taking out the garbage. It was healing relationships or jettisoning relationships, things that were stopping me. So
Mhm.
so it does take work, and it does take some time, in terms of just practicing
Yes.
and getting better at it, right? It's
Yes. Deliberate effort and you have to devote to letting go. It takes the expansion of your awareness. You have to be deliberate. You have to be consistent in to focusing yourself on now, on what is in actual existence, and not you're untraining yourself to um, you're getting out of your head. Your head is still going to do what it does. The thoughts are never going to stop. They're never going to stop. But you get better at ignoring them. You get it better at allowing. It's not even ignoring them. That's the wrong term, because if you try to ignore them and then you feel really defeated when you pay attention to them.
That's the
It's
fight.
more
Yeah.
it's more about allowing them just to go, and not watering them with your attention, because they have absolutely no power until we give them attention. And so that is our power. We should only give attention to what serves us, what is making us happy, what is making us the best we can be in whatever moment it is. The best that life has to offer right now is here for us right now, and we can choose that, or we can choose discomfort, or we can choose frustration, or we can choose fear, or we can choose anxiety, or we can choose anger, or we can choose, it runs on, with the choices. And that's the beauty of life. And that's your prerogative to do. If you want to do that, it makes it more interesting, then do it, and do it and do it and do it and keep doing it until you decide not to do it. And when you decide not to do it, just know that you can decide not to do it and allow um, what is to be there. Yeah, and it's not about acquiring anything. It's about shedding away what we've acquired, because we cover ourselves with the nonsense. And our true selves is the peace, is the happiness, is the joy. That's already there. So we are that. And then, but we just put on all of these veils of distraction, of different sentiments, different personas, different ideas, and most of them are the fuels to suffering and discomfort. So as we become aware of this and we start to shed them and let them go, and then we can recognize them. I started thinking about that because, oh, I know where that came from, and I know why I used that, and I know why I referred to that default setting. And okay, you were fun. You taught me a lot, and let it go. I kind of see them like balloons, you know,
Mhm.
and you just let it go, let it go, let it go.
Yeah.
And for long, you have nothing to. You realize there's nothing to let go, and that there's nothing to grasp either. It's just allowing the fullness of here. And that is absolutely everything. We got it all here, man. And so why obstruct or why disrupt perfection? It's no need, there's no reason to do anything. It's no reason to overwork or add anything. Life doesn't need our help. Your life, leave your life alone, right? What was it?
Your life is none of your business.
None of your business, right? So leave it alone.
Yeah.
Leave it alone.
Well, it's interesting because you talk about the balloons, and that's just such a great visual, right? Just letting the balloons go.
Yeah.
And I think, for a long time in my journey, I was trying to pop them. I'm like, get out of here, squeezing them, sticking them with a pin, whatever
Yeah.
it took, right?
Yeah.
And it's life. Sometimes we have to put in a lot of effort to discover that we don't need to exert all of that effort, right? I mean, I think
Yes,
that's something that
I
I've
needed
had to
to.
learn.
I had to
Yeah,
go that route.
right, right.
And it's funny, I watch my kids and one of my sons in particular, and I'm like, wow, this guy's got serious Buddha nature because he's such a beautiful, loving soul,
Mm,
but he must go the most difficult route there is. He has to know for himself. He has to feel it. He has to this is my older son. I say, this is hot. Don't touch it. He's like, all right, Dad. I'm not touching that. I can tell it's hot. I can look at it and see. I tell the other one, hey man, that's hot. Don't touch it. He's like, really? Okay, well, let me stick this in there and see what it does to that. And then
yeah.
let me touch that and see. I didn't touch that. I touched this that I put inside of it. And
Mm,
he has to experience it. He has to go through the fire. And he is really, really learning a lot going
yeah.
through the fire. You're gonna teach yourself in the fire. You could just realize and take the lessons from the people who have gone through it themselves, or you can say, you know what, I'm different than you. I want to go through and feel that myself. And he's a lot like that. That's how he is. He wants to feel it himself. He wants to jump in himself, and he is going to crack his shell for sure. That way, he's pecking at it.
I
But
can
and
relate.
and there's no wrong way. There's no wrong way. We can experience this thing however we want. We can live it in our minds. We can live through our emotions, and we can follow our emotions and believe our thoughts, and stay in that loop and wish and dream, and that's fun. We're addicted to feeling, and it's not just good feeling. We're addicted to any kind of feeling, and we like to do that, and we like to live in our heads. And so that's just a human thing, and we do that as long as we need to do that until we're sick and tired of doing that. Until we realize, hey man, this is not it. This, this is
Yeah.
not what we should be doing. I could be. This is not the purpose here. But it's the path. And so there's no wrong point in the path. There's no point that you should be at in the path. You should, and you are where you are, and that's the perfect place to be. And so you can be aware of where you are as your highest self, or as a persona that your mind generated. So it's up to you to experience it, life in the moment, any way you choose. But I got tired of doing it those ways, and so the mission is to help those who are looking for certain answers, who are seeking for solutions, and discovering how to let go.
What are some of the practices that you've um, worked with or practiced over the years that that could be of benefit to folks listening in terms of embarking on this journey?
So meditation, and meditation is focus. It is attention to any singular thing. It's not just having your hands in a mudra and with your legs in a lotus position and your eyes looking up, and it doesn't have to be that. That is meditation, but it doesn't have to be that. That's someone focusing on their posture. That's someone focusing, their thoughts, they're focusing they're focusing several things at once. But if you focus your attention, if you are tying your shoes and you are saying, okay, I'm going to tie my shoes only. I'm not going to think about where I'm going. I'm not going to think about anything. I'm just thinking about the laces in my hands. I'm crossing them over. I feel the texture of my shoes. I could smell my shoes. I'm looping and looping, and I'm doing fully attentive in the moment and in the action of tying your shoes. That's meditative. Okay. Sitting, right? If you are aware of your posture, aware of your butt in the seat, your feet on the floor. If you have shoes on, your feet are inside of your shoes, and you're just sitting, and you're aware of all the aspects of sitting. That's meditation. Making tea, washing dishes, driving, maybe without the music. You're paying attention to traffic. You see people in their cars. Something I learned from a teacher named Osho years ago was a technique, a remote viewing technique, where when I was in my car, meditative, fully aware of just driving the streets, the sounds, the feeling, the vibration of the car, my body in the car, I would practice seeing myself in the car from outside of the car, see myself, how I look outside of myself. That is a great technique. I call it like the drone, to be able to see yourself from outside of yourself as the drone. That's a meditative technique to be present and aware of yourself outside of yourself. And so that's something that I've also practiced. So through my day and through years of practicing different forms of meditation, so of course, sometimes I actually sit and meditate, but my practice now is to be meditative all throughout my day. In conversation, each conversation I have, I do my best to be meditative in it and fully listen to whom I'm speaking with, without projecting what I'm going to say next, or answering, or filling in of what they're going to say next. So being present and attentive in listening. So every moment, every interaction, every non-interaction is an opportunity to be meditative, to practice focus, to practice being present, to feel your energy body beneath your physical form, right? Just to be there and with yourself. And so these things, meditation, and the many ways that you can practice meditation, is at the core of what I do. And again, so it translates into observing your thoughts as they arise. Like the analogy of clouds passing, or I used to do a thing where I imagine myself sitting on an overpass and watching cars drive beneath me, right? And the cars are like thoughts, or the thoughts are like the cars passing, and I'm just letting them pass. And then, of course, sometimes I'm like, wow, that's a Bugatti, and I see myself following it, like, wow, I would look cool driving that. And, I start imagining, and then I catch myself, wait a minute, I followed one of those thoughts, one of those cars. And the moment that you realize that, you just come back into letting them pass, letting them pass, letting them pass. And so observing thoughts, um, observing the moment, fully being attentive and focused on any action that you're doing, a mental action, a physical action, is meditation. So meditation, meditation, meditation. It expands your awareness. And as you expand your awareness, it's like cutting on a light in a room that you thought was empty and just black. And then you saw all kind of stuff. That you can cut the light off right off. But now you know, like, wait a minute, I saw something. It's a lot of stuff in that room. I thought it was nothing in here. I thought it was just an abyss. So once the light cuts on, you can't unsee what you've seen, and you can reassign the light easier once you know that it can be cut on. And so awareness is that light, and to expand the awareness, deliberate attention and focus, meditation is that way. And a lot of people don't meditate because they say they don't have time to, but I'm saying that your whole life is time to, you know. And so everything you're doing can be a meditation and should be.
Right. Yeah. You know, one of the things a wonderful mentor of mine said to me many moons ago, he said, Daryl, first things first, and the rest will be added on. And I think that's just such a beautiful way to perceive my life, is if I do the stuff, the meditating, you know, for me, you know, breath work and gratitude, all those things.
Yes.
The rest comes, the rest shows up. I'm fascinated by it, that, you know, life unfolds in front of me.
Yes.
And as I go, it's like I might be on one step, and this just popped in, but so I remember Indiana Jones, one of his movies, there's like this big chasm that they need to cross, and supposedly, you know, there's a bridge there, but the bridge isn't visible, and they have to step into the chasm to be able to see the bridge, and then the bridge carries them across. So they put, you know, it's faith, right? They start to step and the bridge shows up. And so that's how it works. I mean, you know, that's how I have found that it works. And it's up to me to take those steps, and it gets easier over time, right? It gets easier over time. But anyway, so, you know, I know you and I could talk forever, and we have, you know, just in our different conversations. But what a beautiful sharing that you've given us, and so much appreciated, Kali. And how do we find you? You know, if I was looking to learn more about you, or learn more about your wonderful book, or what's upcoming for Kali, how do I do that?
All right. You can go to my website. It's my name. I got one of those too.
Yes.
KaliJBanks.com, and my contact information is there. The book is available there. Excuse me. The book is also available on Amazon and through the publisher, bookbaby.com, BOOKBABY. And there is an audio version available on my website and at bookbaby.com. So you can reach out to me there. You can email me directly at elevatorlight@gmail.com as well. And you can reach out to my emotional intelligence program, DENEPO, DENEPO education.com, DENEPO education. It's the word opened backwards, DENEPO. And the premise behind DENEPO is, with an open mind, you can move forward. And so the word is backwards, and because most of the time our minds are closed, and so we have things backwards. But as we expand our minds and open our minds, we can move forward, because only with an open mind can you move forward. So DENEPOeducation.com. And I have emotional intelligence training as well as the spiritual training.
That's great, man. I'm so happy that you're helping other people to have some of the experiences that you've had, and in terms of just being here, being present, moving life in a beautiful direction. So I always appreciate you sharing. I learned so much, and I appreciate you sharing with me, because it's just helpful for me to hear you, and it's always helpful for me when we connect. So thanks so much for
Likewise,
coming
my
on,
friend.
brother. Thank
Likewise,
you.
man.
I appreciate you, man.
Likewise, man. I
We'll talk
appreciate you,
soon.
bro.
If you've enjoyed When I Stop Fighting, the podcast, please check out my books and my journals on my website. You can enjoy a 15% discount by using the code PODCAST at checkout. Thank you again.